In this video, we're going to talk about the future of making money as a creative and the best ways to make money right now in 2025. This is important because the nature of creative work is changing. We have this dynamic of creators and how they make money and non-creators. Well, at the same time, we have this trend of everything becoming content. Every marketing team is thinking basically in terms of content and less in terms of marketing. And then this idea of where the money is. What are people actually paying for from a skill set perspective? As AI takes over, as jobs begin to get commoditized, as these weird generational shifts happen in the workforce. Now, I'm gonna walk through all of that. I'm gonna walk through how we got here, like why creative work is so fragmented right now. I'm gonna talk through the opportunity and kind of what's happening in this idea of creative strategy, creative direction today, and how you stack up skills and actually become useful enough to execute in it. We're gonna go through AI and what's actually happening and what you should care about and not. A topic I don't often go super deep on, but it's worth discussing here. Talk a little bit about how I see this and why working with so many brands and creators kind of enables this vision. I'm gonna talk about the steps to take to put you in a position to make solid money and to feel like you have a future-proof career inside the creative space. Let's lock in. So first, I'm gonna introduce this concept of creative strategy. It is the little brother, little sister to creative direction. And it's a really important concept for today's world because it's about how to go from a creative with a certain skill to someone who can strategically apply that creative to how things move on the internet in multiple ways. And this is a really important concept because this is the most in-demand skill in 2025. Now I'll detail this more at the end of this video, but I'm actually gonna do a little live Zoom that you can hop on where I'm gonna do a training based on this concept. And you'll see the link is down below in the video description. But first, how did we get here? So if you look at this chart of the modern creative, we have what used to happen. So if you were a non-creator, you didn't make content. And this video isn't gonna be for people that make content or wanna make content. It's just a small chunk of it. But basically, if you were a non-creator, you had your salary, whatever you make from your work. And then typically you would have a side hustle. You have a lot of people that say, hey, I'm a painter or I'm a copywriter or whatever. I'm gonna have some side work or I'm gonna have an entrepreneurial side hustle. And you have a pipeline of being able to have to get clients and work for that. You would do through having to traditionally market that business. And this is still the case today. If you are not a creator, you have to figure out those same exact two things. Now, if you are a creator, it's a much different set of economics. You have your actual salary. In a lot of cases now, people are also paying creators at their company, bounties like the way Alta does, or additional sums of money to actually be involved inside the creator economy for the company they work for. But then you get money from the platform. You can get money from the TikTok Creator Fund, from YouTube. You get money from affiliate, doing things like TikTok Shop. You get money from brand deals and getting sponsorships, and you get money from the services pipeline, just like a side hustle. If you are a freelancer, you're a designer, you're an illustrator, whatever it is, videographer, you still get your freelance items as well. So Creator has expanded the ability for creative people who understand social media to basically get more money and to get more leads. And it's also made some of the most useful people inside the marketing economy increasingly self-reliant, able to make a lot of money on their own versus having to rely on work for it. But what if you don't want to be a creator? We'll get to that in a second because it's kind of an awkward time right now. Creative work is broken because these creative functions have a massive gap. And what do I mean by creative work? I basically mean like if you are at a job or a company, whether that is a doctor's office or that is an agency or that is a big product company or whatever it is, if you are in the marketing department or the creative department, if you make photos, videos, design, any level of copywriting, growth, marketing, strategy, communications, most of that I feel like falls in the lump of creative work. But there's an issue there. And the issue is that kind of younger people can't progress. The generation gap is too big. The older generation doesn't understand social media. And so the game has changed a significant amount. So mentorship you would have gotten in previous generations when work was kind of continuing to change, but the people who were in charge understood it. You could kind of get a valuable like mentorship-based system at work where you learned on the job. Now there's a gap between where there's a workforce that kind of understands how the modern world works, and an older generation is educating them that simply does not, and also doesn't even know how to speak to that generation.
What the Sigma?
And in between, you kind of get this millennial generation who are a little frustrated with their fiscal scenario, but also that creator generation we point to above, most of the savvy ones, and this is my story for sure, went and got money on the creator side as well and kind of removed themselves from this equation of even being in the mix for that mentorship level at all. But without anyone to teach the younger generation how to do what they do better or how to engage in typical corporate strategy, the younger generation is finding it really hard to progress inside their careers. And at the same time, there's a second, potentially even bigger problem. And that's that for about the last decade, we've been taught not to think of things as good or bad, or even call out if they perform or not. There is this kind of lack of opinion that's become really important, that you don't want to call a campaign bad, you just want to kind of move on. You don't want to call someone out for their bad work. The focus has been on not having an opinion lets you skirt by, lets you not get in trouble for having an opinion. But this is a really, really bad thing in creative work because a lot of it isn't actually objective. You would think because it's creativity, it is, but it really comes down to, does it help sell a thing or not? Does it move a company's goals forward or not? And when you develop this kind of era of people who do not want to have an opinion, that have not been able to develop and defend their own amount of taste, because the important part about having opinions is then you have to defend them. You have to just say if it's right or wrong. You have to engage in that conversation. You have to be right and be rewarded for being right, or be wrong and be penalized for being wrong. But now there's just been a generation of work that hasn't had to do that. And so now what we end up in is this graph here, where we have creative work in business. And there are basically businesses that don't enable content in their businesses. They don't post really well on social media. They don't run really well on ads. They're kind of living in an old world playbook. And they're at the bottom of this scale. They're screwed. And you have in the middle, you have, okay, we have a business and we're posting creative work. We do the basics. We're on Instagram. We do it, but we don't really do it well. And that is the majority, right? And that's companies of all sizes and scales who engage with this. Maybe it helps achieve their goals, but they're not actually good at it. They don't get it. And then you have optimized creative work and optimized business content, where people who really understand what's happening in the world are taking action, and they're doing that with influencers, they're doing that on their actual social media platforms, they're doing that with paid advertising, they're doing that with how their brands interact with culture or how their creative work does. And by creative work there, I mean like if you are an artist, if you are a videographer, for whatever it is, and you're a photographer, and you get mad at the algorithm because you're posting and it doesn't work, it's because you're not optimizing. And whether you like it or not, you can present your creative work and you can get a lot of attention if you just focus on it. And that is the zone of opportunity right there, is being one of the people that get it, that say, I can take things from posted creative work or just basic business content to the optimized version of that, whether you're doing that for a creator, whether you're doing that for your own creative career, or whether you're doing that for a company. Because that is the gap that we're missing, with a generation that's too old to be able to actually understand it, and a generation that's too young that doesn't quite have the experience or acumen to actually act on it yet. So how do you get there? So right now, one of the problems with the old paradigm of creative work is in places like agencies and more traditional companies that focus you on one skill. I'm a designer, I'm a videographer, I'm a copywriter. We're no longer in a one skill world. And that's why people get frustrated a lot working with agencies that A, don't get it, and B, have all these people there that are kind of forced into these roles that aren't really that useful anymore. People don't need single skills. They need multiple skills. They need a layer of insight on that, which is basically how to think and some level of experience that really relates to strategy, like how things move in the modern world, and then funnels, how people convert into buying things like online and in person. And if you have that and you have some level of discipline and process in what you do, all of a sudden you become super valuable. And you'll see it online all the time. People are constantly hiring for creative strategist, creative director, head of growth, even just growth marketer. And so the issue becomes, okay, if you know that that's the route, and the best way to really learn is by doing, how do you actually do it? So let's start with this current scenario. You used to have a marketing budget back in the day. And as a part of that marketing budget, you would have content. We're shooting for social media, we're doing a campaign shoot, whatever it is. That'd be a portion of your marketing budget. But savvy companies today are actually switching that completely around. You have a content budget. Marketing is content. That is campaign shoots for social media. Throwing an event, the primary goal of the event is the content that comes out of the event, not the event itself. You're investing more into your retail experience. You're investing more because you want people to create content in that retail experience. And there's a smaller subsection of ads that are using content. Those are the two landslide most important things for any company right now. Everything now, all the other skills, positioning, design, etc., all gets rolled into content. Now you can be afraid of this or you can lean into this, but where creatives really thrive is leaning in and skill stacking. So you start with one skill. Every creative needs at least one solid skill. Videographer, designer, copywriter, whatever that is, you're solid at one thing. And then you need at least some secondary amounts of skills. And what I mean by secondary is a lot of this is kind of easy now. If you're a copywriter and you're using ChatGPT and Claude pretty frequently and you kind of know what you're doing and you have any degree of background, like you can accomplish a job that would have taken you years to learn prior. And whoever wants to comment or argue that, oh, I have this experience, that experience, no, it doesn't matter. There are kids who are going to run circles around you who are able to use those tools effectively. So if you have your one stacked skill, videography, something you can't replace is easy, and you stack one of these softer skills on top of it. Another good example being like, hey, I know how to use the back end in Shopify. Skills that sound hard, but then in reality, like when you're in the back end of Shopify, it's pretty easy to use. And you get one good contact on Upwork, you can expense back to your company. It's actually going and filling in anything that requires you to modify liquid or whatever. You have a fully built workflow. And if you have that basic setup, then the whole world revolves around organic content strategy and paid content strategy. So this is my chart of creative strategist to basically creative director. If you master this chart is how if you're good at this chart is how you get to level 1. How you master this chart is how you get all the way from a strategist to a creative director. So what everyone needs to be able to learn and focus on who wants to succeed in this climate is this. Basically, one is pillar strategy. So if you want to succeed in making organic content for a brand or even for your own content, you need to have pillars. The way I break down pillars for every client project I do is you have 4 content types with a style. So hey, I do one shots about travel. You do sit down yap videos breaking down your product formulations. You do carousels that, are photo dumps of behind the scenes, whatever it is. You are testing 4 things at any given time. You are evaluating that stuff monthly and then saying, is this a pillar that we keep, a pillar we need to improve, or a pillar that we need to get rid of? Then you have an improvement framework for the ones you want to improve to say, we're going to get better. We're going to get better by changing the format. We're going to get better by making better hooks. Basically, you've developed a strategy for that. And then you've gotten good at shoot execution, at the actual making of the content, whether you're shooting it or whether someone else is. What was the research that went into what you're going to accomplish when you're shooting a shoot or you're doing a campaign? How do you brief all the people involved, or how do you script when you actually need to write stuff out? And then what are all the logistics? What all needs to happen? What's that big checklist of we have the lighting and this deliverable and this goes to the editor and here's all the things that go into this and how we make a budget, etc. And you add to that last piece of a creative network. Who are UGC people and creators? How do you get them? Who are designers and editors that can do work at various price points that will be able to help people achieve their vision? And then what are influencers and other creatives that help make campaigns and things really go? And if you have a core of this, you're a creative strategist and you have a job that's really in demand. If you are amazing at this, you're fully up to a creative director and you can shift the nature of what a company can look like. And the same thing applies to paid. There's all the organic content. Everyone talks about organic, but paid is just as effective as a strategy. I have multiple brands that aren't even good at organic. Doesn't matter because they're good enough at paid to make a whole business off of them. And this doesn't apply to just selling things that are on Shopify, right? This applies to getting leads for a local business, to basically any type of thing you sell, even software, all comes down to paid funnel as well. But with this, it's the same idea. How can you take whatever creative skill set you have and be like, I know how to brief creative concepts and bring them into the world you can run as an ad. I know how to get a volume of that, how to make more of that, how to try more styles, how to do more things. And you'll see these levels. Like I want to talk through TikTok Shop for a second. So this is the basic of what most brands deal with on TikTok Shop. They recruit people who are existing affiliates and creators. They have an open system where people can apply for it. They have a store that needs to get merchandise and have stuff put in. They need to set up programs and bundles or deals. And they need to take a lot of the creative that's good from people they recruit and then run that as ads. Take any of that good content and try it on other ad networks and integrate things like going live. And you take that up a step further and you're really running like something large there. There's a whole team that's going to be dedicated to briefing and providing information for those creators, as well as finding them, tracking them, and developing strategies for how they work, taking the things that they make and running them as other ads, aggregating what creative looks like. These are jobs that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago that make a massive difference. And what they require is one level of creative skill set, and then just an understanding of how things work and a desire to actually work on them to fulfill the rest. I bring all this up to say that your goal as a creative needs to be, I'm going to be a critical thinker. Only the critical thinkers survive. It's no longer a purely creative, I'm purely good at this skill set. It's how can I attach creative to social strategy or paid strategy and have actual KPIs and numbers I run determine if it's going better or worse to get me to my goal. And that goal can be any number of things. I have my own agency or I have my own clients and I want to help them perform and I want to make money as an entrepreneur. It can be I have my own business and I want to be able to know how all these things work so I can scale it. It can be I work at a company and I want to get really good at my job. And then we get into the conversation about AI because everyone's worried about it. So I'm going to break it down here in 2 columns. Doesn't matter and has impact. Everyone thinks that, I'm going to come up with AI that's going to replace humans in our shoots. Or I'm going to generate video scripts that are going to go viral on organic. Or I'm going to run a faceless account that's going to crush it. Those are all bad ideas. Those don't matter. Those aren't effective. Those are time sucks for whatever project you're working on. It's important to recognize stuff like that and what to worry about and not. But then there's the things that actually have impact. If you are applying hooks using AI video to your ads to test its variations, that has impact. If you're doing really creative ads and campaigns, you're saying, I'm not going to try to replicate perfect characters and exact humans one-to-one, but I'm going to create energy-based advertisements that tell stories you could only tell with AI. That is a useful skill set. World building and creating these graphics and ideas and visual tones that you can use as part of storytelling, the way my friend Zach has it with his app Aura. Excellent example of being useful. Retouching and post-processing on photos and things like that. Amazing skill set to have. And coming up with angles and ideation for how to create good content versus relying on it to write itself. And I want to kind of importantly call that out because people waste a lot of time thinking what they do with their career or being worried about AI. And this right now, this moment in time in 2025, this is what you should and shouldn't care about. And it's funny because I feel like I see the creative world in like 4 dimensions. And it's because of all the things that I get to work on, right? Like I'd be hard pressed to find anyone that has more of a knowledge of the social networks and what works on them organically and what works on paid than what I have at this point in time for a few reasons. I have all of my content. I feedback all the hundreds of creators and brands inside Cut 30. I'm working on all these paid accounts I have in work and for my own brands. And having to actually make a bunch of these things myself, feedback all these others and be involved in the decisions of it, there's just basically only a handful of people on earth that have that level of visibility and who are incentivized to continue to be amazing at it. Same thing with people that came into Cut 30. Like Tatum runs a sports marketing agency. And she's like filled up her pipeline by basically breaking down strategies that people are doing and then implying that she can help craft those strategies herself. Same thing watching people like in the first Cut 30, there was a brand called Tails that went viral a few times on TikTok. And he stopped posting organic, the founder, but then basically relayed the things he learned about how to make a good organic video into their like super successful paid content strategy. Or even someone like Jasmine, she was a few cohorts ago in Cut 30, where she runs like a successful TikTok shop, does founder content, her own brand content, and then has obviously like affiliates and all things that come from shop, but knows as a founder that she has to think about content and learn as much as she can to enable all those parts of her business. And just interacting and working through with all those people and seeing how they progress and doing that over hundreds of times, like allows me to kind of see how impactful these skill sets become when you know how to move between those worlds, and then just how few people can actually get there without doing it. And so what is your route to be able to say, hey, I'm a creative at one point, and I want to get to one of these higher paid positions or these like really in-demand skill sets that's going to help me in my career? So first, you need to put yourself in a position to get skill A. No one can help you with that. You have to go become photographer, videographer, designer, copywriter, and be good at it. If you haven't hit that yet, come back to this video once you are. Then you need to put yourself in a position to test organic content and then paid content at some point, whether it's with you, whether it's at a job, whether it's with your own organic content or with a brand. There's no bigger skill set right now than being able to actually test and figure out what works there live on a project. Like being able to be a social media manager, being able to be in the conversations around what paid media is being run, like get in the mix there. And again, you can run that for your own organic strategy or use that for a smaller person, but just getting the core skill set. And then becoming busy enough to develop a bias for action. This is a big thing I noticed, is that a lot of people that have dealt with that creative block that comes where they just don't get enough done or living in their own world, when they start working 70-hour weeks on some big project, that all goes away. They inherently have bias for action. Everything inherently gets done because they're so busy not to. And developing that by just really committing to getting into something is a key part of getting where you want to go creatively. And then last, build a toolkit. You've heard me talk about this in videos before, but all these concepts and ideas and things you see around the world, every advertisement, every organic piece of video, everything that works how the modern media does on any network, saving and organizing that so you have a reference point to act on is the difference between people that can walk into any job and be like, oh, why should we employ you? Well, because I have this toolkit of all these things that I save and organize. There are proven methods, and I've tried these ones, and I would like to try these ones, and this is what I think works for your business. That's the people that get hired. I've made this YouTube channel to give away lots and lots of free game around how all these things work. And now as I look to the future of where that's headed, I think it kind of has to escalate, right? Because it's almost too complicated to be able to just be put in a video and expect people to be able to understand it. I think that next dynamic that comes from this really comes more into live, into actual workshopping. And so this next week, I'm going to kick off kind of a live Zoom around this concept, basically how to create a strategy for a brand. We'll start with organic on this one. We'll probably get into paid at some point too, but like, how do you actually do it? What is the exercise that you can lead? And can we actually do some of that live? We're going to do a live Zoom. I'm going to include it in the description here. We're actually going to walk through some of the strategies. So you'll have basically sat in a call and workshopped it and kind of done it once and said, all right, I've taken a step towards living in this kind of strategist world where I can be a videographer that also is able to like run ad campaigns and help clients get their end results. Or I'm going to be a designer who understands a lot more about making my ads impactful enough that I can actually get in the media buying side of things too and become a real threat. I want to kind of start that and kick that off kind of with a live training here so people can kind of experience that and we can begin to get workshopping and take it away from this kind of one-to-many YouTube where I feel like you can hear these ideas but you're not going to get the same resonance. So a bit of a different type of video and a different type of goal on this than usual, but I'm excited to see some of you next week to actually talk about and work about some of this live. And I would encourage you to go back through and kind of rewatch a lot of this video when you're thinking about the future of the career and be like, how can I take my skill set and then actually achieve some of these things to get into a strategist role as soon as possible? Because you're going to end up in one of the last really solid roles because it requires critical thinking and knowledge of so much. And I feel like the more people that position themselves inside that, the more that this kind of community we have here is going to be overall positioned for success. So I appreciate y'all watching and I hope to see you at the webinar next week.